Hello, this is Dan, the Furniture Repairman. Today we're going to show you how we replace the missing veneer on this antique game table. Now this veneer is very thick because it's old. Modern veneer would be a much thinner product, so it wouldn't work. This is the final product we got to, and we're going to show you how we got there. We used a two-part moldable epoxy from Mohawk Supply. Now here you're going to see a picture of it. We used a cherry, I believe, to start, but it comes in a variety of colors. We're going to hand color it at the end, and we're going to go through those steps with you. In the trades, you'll hear guys refer to this as Tootsie Roll, and you can see why. It's very simple to use, it's very forgiving, and we're going to go step by step through the process. Now, we're going to take a razor blade, and we're just going to cut off a little bit of the amount that we're going to need. So we work with small amounts at a time because it hardens very quickly. Now what I like to do is to cut pie shapes out. So I'll cut a little bit of a pie shape right here, and then we're going to pull the cellophane off of it, and we're just going to mix it with our hands until it's all one color in consistency. Once it's all one color, you're going to have between 3 and 5 minutes to get it installed. And after that, it's going to be hardened and ready for sanding after about 10 minutes. Now, this is an epoxy, but it's really not an adhesive. It's more for cosmetic, but it's very strong. I've rebuilt the corners of pieces. I've rebuilt carvings with this. It's a very good product to use in our trade. I sped up the video so you don't have to watch all this, but you can see as you work it, it tends to get more and more consistent in color. Once you have it all the way consistent, it's good to go. I take it, and that's about the size I work unless I'm going to apply a lot at a time. This is a very big veneer repair, so you will see me cut much larger pieces than that. I'm zooming in a little on the repair area, and you can see I took my utility knife and I scratched it up a little bit. So I'm trying to create a little bit of roughness in there so my moldable will go in and stick to something. Now my moldable is mixed, and here you can see I'm pressing it into that wood. I'm pressing it very hard with that big giant paw I got. So I'm using my thumb, and I'm trying to squeeze it inside all those little notches and cutouts that I made there. So I roughed up the surface, and I'm going to push the moldable into the surface. The moldable is going to dry, and it's going to hang in there, and it's not going to pop off on me. Now I'm going to do 3 coats of this. I don't know if in the start I knew I was going to do more than 1 coat. It's too big a spot to get done in one. Even little spots are very hard to get done in one. I usually do a base coat, and then I do a finish coat. But if it's a real large area, I know I'm going to be doing more than 1 coat. You see me right here, I'm kind of smoothing the area out with my thumb so I'm not too high. But what I want is, this is what we would call a scratch coat. This is a rough coat that has a lot of texture to it, so my next coat will adhere onto that. Now the last thing I'm going to do is come back with my razor blade. I'm going to scratch this up even more so that it dries. It's very, very rough, and you can see it's very rough right here. So when I come back with my second coat, I'm going to press it into all those rough areas, and it's going to dry together, and it's going to hang on there, and it's going to be a very strong mechanical bond. Now here I come after about 10 minutes. It's dry, it's nice and hard, and I'm coming back with my second coat, and you can see how hard I'm pushing it in there. I'm not laying it on easy. I really want to force it into those spots underneath and let it dry and let it become all one piece of epoxy after that. So the hard part's going to be getting it smooth and into that shape, and I'm going to show you a little trick. I just use a small board and a little bit of water, and I wet it down, and first thing I'm going to do is, you're going to see me come with the board right now. I'm taking the board and I'm pressing the epoxy in. I'm pressing it flat, and now I'm going to start using the board to shape it, and you can see how it gives it a nice flat smooth surface. And I'm transitioning in from where the edge of the veneer stops and where my work begins. Now I'm going to add a little bit more epoxy into this side, and I'm going to continue to work this until I get it almost all the way there. Now, many people would feel that this isn't the correct way to do a repair, especially on a piece this old. But this is my customer's piece. This isn't my personal piece. And this is an acceptable repair. Now, I can make a new piece of veneer. I'm certainly capable of it, but it's much more expensive. So it comes down to how much money somebody wants to put into the piece. Now, we do a lot of touch-ups and repairs out of my shop. We're very good at them, and we've never had anybody look at one of our touch-ups and have a problem with it. So when people come in and they ask, I give them options, and this is the less expensive option, and it also lets us spend money on other parts of the piece. Now you can see I sprayed a little bit of water on here to make this a little slippery, and I'm using my board here, and I'm shaping this in to the flatness that I'm looking for. I got a good transition, I got a nice flat surface, and I would call this an excellent second coat. This is a picture of the second coat. It's dry. You can see I'm about 80% there. I'm going to have to do a little bit more on the corners and the edges. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump to the next stage. Third stage is more or less repeat exactly what I did, fill it in, make it nice and smooth. And here's my starting point to do my touch-up. And you can see how many places we had to repair on this. So there's a tremendous amount of work, and this is just one side of the table. So all the way around this, the veneer was missing, and now I'm using my Mohawk Blendal powders. We'll put a link to those, and just a little bit of denatured alcohol to mix the powders. Now, if you see my hands, I'm using one hand to steady the other. This is a pinstriper's trick that you see people who do pinstriping on cars. They'll use this to steady their hand, or sometimes they carry around a board with them, and I'm using that fan brush. Now that fan brush is got a lot of gaps in it, and I want gaps. I want this to have light and color movement all the way through it, because you can see I'm trying to match in that look of that veneer there. So the way to tell the color is when this is wet with the denatured. That's probably going to be very close to the color it'll be when I put my sealer on top of it. I'm very careful on the edge there, and I'm going to just streak this in and start my base coat. Now there's about 3 or 4 colors in this, so I'm not going to get there in one layer. I'm going to have to let this dry, hit it with my sealer, and then let the sealer dry and go another coat. So the way I get it to dry, and the reason why I use denatured alcohol is it dries very quickly. I'm just going to fan it right here with a paper plate. That'll force the denatured to dry. Now after that denatured dries, that Blendal powder is turned back to powder, and I can move it around a little bit with my hand right here and kind of blend it in and ease it. And now I'm shooting it quickly with my sealer, and you can see it blends nicely in some spots. I've got some light spots and I've got some dark spots. I'm not there, I'm a lot closer, and that's the way touch-up is done. You have to sneak up on it. I tell everybody it's like playing golf. Get on the tee, hit a good shot down the fairway, stay out of trouble, and it's a par whatever it is you need. So my denatured is dry, my sealer dried, and now I'm coming back with my fan brush and a little different color, a little bit lighter, and I'm streaking it back over the top. And I'm doing multiple layers. That's really the key. It's going to take 3, 4, 5 different layers for you to get there. If you don't get it right, just take a denatured rag and rub all your colors back off and go again. Not a big deal. A lot of times you have to walk away from the piece and come back and work on it again after your eyes get a little fresh and get their sight back. You look at a piece too much, you get a little bit colorblind in there. So you can see I'm not adding a lot of color right now. I'm just kind of streaking in here and there. I'm filling in, I'm guessing, I'm seeing where I need to put something. I'm looking at the rest of the piece and I'm adding it in. Now I have these little dots over here on the side I had to fill in, and I'm coming back with my tiny brush and I'm going to add a little bit of color right in there, and I'm going to get them to disappear for me. Now there's a term you hear in the finishing trade and also in the automotive painting trade. It's called finding your light, and I'll hear artists use it too. It's the way you see the piece, the lighting that lets you see the piece the most accurately. Now, I like the light to come from one side of the piece across it to the other, so I'm always moving the piece around to make sure I see it well before I even start my work. That's very important. The other thing is, don't be intimidated by this stuff. I'm not an artistic guy. If I needed to draw a stick man, I would grab a ruler to do it. I just can't draw things. But what I can do is look at something and try to repeat it. And that's what I did here. I'm just looking at the other grain patterns and I'm repeating it. Now you can see I'm moving on to these bottom pieces right here. I'm adding a little bit of color in, and I'm going to effort them the same time as I effort this. My color is a little darker. I'm working an edge, and you can see right there I'm blending and I'm moving things around. So it looks like I'm making it much darker, but my powders are dried up there, and when they dry they tend to get very light, and when they're wet you could see what the color is going to be when they get the sealer back on there. Now I'm spraying a nitrocellulose sealer on there. You could use that, or you could use a shellac with the Mohawk blendable products. And the reason why is you have to put the lacquer on top of it to reactivate the colors. It all becomes one layer and it dries very nicely. The other thing you could do is you could put your powders in a shellac, and then you don't have to spray anything on top of it. The shellac will just dry with the varnish already in it. So I've got it dry right there. I'm going to do another spray with my sealer, and you can see this is starting to really get there. This is blending in. I'm going to zoom in right here and let you get a good look at it. I think I'm almost there. Now the color I feel like I'm missing is going to be orange. Now when I train people, more often than not, I tell people you're missing black or you're missing orange. And right there, I'm giving you a little bit of a look from a different angle where maybe you could see where the orange is missing. My sealer is dried. It's been about another 10 minutes, and you can see that orange I've got on that paper plate palette. And we're going to put it in there. Now, we're not going to put it on there very heavily. We're going to go very light with this application, but we're going to use it to blend in, and you could see it right there, how that orange is all of a sudden just tying that piece in. It's going to lighten out some of those darker areas. I'm not painting the whole thing orange. I'm streaking it in. That fan brush is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's putting color in some spots and not in the other, and I'm using a real quick stroke. Now I'm leaving that little bit black right there at the edge because this piece has those black areas on it, and that's a transition point. So I'm just going to let that be exactly like that. Just that little bit of orange, and I feel like that finishes it right off. And then again, here I am, paper plate. I'm going to dry my denatured, and then I'm going to shoot it with another coat of sealer. And if it's good, then I'm going to put my varnish on top. Now, the difference between varnish and sealer is important to know. Sealer is very adhesive and sticks to things, and it lets other things stick to it. But what it's not is very strong. So after I use my sealer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a coat of varnish on top of it to protect it. Now the sealer will show us what we're looking at. A couple quick sprays right here. Now this is kind of wet and glossy, but I think this is a pretty damn good match right there. This is blending in. When it dries, I'm going to take a second look and make sure I'm in good shape. But I think I've got this area matched in where nobody looking at this piece is going to all of a sudden say, oh, this is different, this is a repair. I think we fooled them. That's not a bad thing in this case. This is Dan, the Furniture Repairman. Thank you so much for watching. If you can like and subscribe, we definitely appreciate that. Every time we restore a piece, it keeps it out of that landfill, and it keeps more trees being cut down to build new ones. Y'all have a good day.